What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Royale YouTube channel. Me and Christian are back. This time, we are not shitting on your guys in Devy. We are going on the underrated guys in our Devy rankings. Guys that, we think can take a big jump. Maybe we have them a little higher than consensus, which consensus doesn't matter in Devy. But overall, like, who are some guys out there that you could target in your Devy drafts right now or in the leagues that aren't getting valued the way that we think they should getting valued? So we have 4 guys on this show that we think that you should take a look at that are underrated right now in a lot of Devy circles. We'll take a look on that after the intro. See you guys then. All right, we're going to get on underrated Devy assets. Had to put my guy, or Christian's guy, rather, rented up there for him so that he could get a little love out there. Not necessarily my guy yet, but we'll see if Christian can kind of, convince me. But before we get into that, we're talking about Jam Miller, running back from Alabama. Did get on the board a little bit last year in terms of production right now. And again, if you're new to the channel, we have a Patreon that has consensus ranks in positions for NFL and in Devy. So when it says consensus position rank, that's combined. So we're not talking about the 53rd best Devy running back. That's combined with our NFL rankings as well. If you want to see all of them, you can check it out on the Patreon. But we're going to talk about Jam Miller, and he's a guy that I know a lot of our patrons are excited about. They have him pretty high in there, and I know Christian is high on him. So what do we think about with him?
So the first thing, so we've got him listed on this graphic as 5'10", 201, but Alabama recently updated their heights and weights and things like that. So he's 5'10", 211 now, which I think is a very important distinction, because when you look at that Alabama weight program, he came in light, and I think that's a main reason why he didn't get on the field right away. But in evaluating him as an incoming freshman, he was up there as my RB2 last year in terms of I think he was behind Singleton and I was right. I think Singleton's really good, but Jam from a technique perspective in terms of seeing the field, making one cut and getting up for upfield, going vertically. I think he does all of the things very, very well that Alabama is going to be asking him to do. One thing with him that is, a little scary is the Alabama running back room has traditionally gotten really muddy. All the time, it is very, very muddy. You've got Jace McClellan there. You've still got Royale Williams there. And you've got a couple of the incoming freshmen that I know. Justice Haynes is making waves. And Richard Young. Yeah. So I think that's where there's a little bit of hesitation with Jam, but from a talent and skill perspective, if he gets on the field, we also know what the Alabama running back room produces at the NFL level. I believe there's a stat that the last 8 or so Senior Bowls have had an Alabama running back. And traditionally, the ones that hit the best are the underclassmen that can get on the field. So I do expect Jam Miller to be that RB2 type of guy that gets a lot of work this year. And when you see his value compared to, where we have him ranked, I think you're going to be pretty excited about scooping him in Devy.
I like that take. I do. I think the big thing for us was like Emmanuel Henderson got shifted to wide receiver this offseason, so he's out of that room. I think the hard part with Alabama running backs is you don't know which one's going to get the run, and I think that is the question. I will say this: I did a depth chart breakdown, reading the room for the quarterback position, but I did go on the Tommy Rees's offense. He uses a lot more 2 quarterback kind of sets back there in terms of what he tries to do, and gets him more involved in the receiving game as well. So there's going to be cases where you have Jace and Royale and Justice and Jam. I think they're all going to be, used a proper way. I don't necessarily think, like in Devy, you're not really necessarily looking for production. That's a nice thing. You're looking for NFL talent. Miller could have that NFL talent. He might not just ever have like that elite production that we see from these guys, because he's going to be in that kind of committee. I do think, though, they're going to lean on the rushing attack this year. I think there has a lot of question marks at that quarterback position, whether it's Ty, whether it's Milroe, whether it's Bunchner, which it shouldn't be Bunchner. If it's Bunchner, they're screwed. But if you got those running backs, yeah, I agree there. And he is talented. He was very high. He taught it. Everybody likes to new things. And I think Justice Haynes is really, really good. I know I have him as my number 2, and he probably could be my number 1. But when you're looking at that, Miller is definitely underrated, right? Next guy is Riley Leonard. Duke, he's getting love out there, though. 6'4", 212. He's getting some draft love. So it's not just us being crazy here. Consensus position ranks 52, so not very high in terms of the quarterback position. But, this quarterback 3 is wide open, and I'm going to keep saying it. Whether it's Quinn, JJ, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., all these guys in there, There is a chance Riley Leonard could maybe play his way into that spot. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, and so here's the thing with Riley. I don't fully expect him to declare after this year. This seems like a guy that stays at Duke for 4 years, is incredibly productive that entire time, and then just continues to build momentum towards being a first round pick. And when you
Yeah.
pop on the film, I expected to see, okay, look at all those rushing yards. I expect him to not be able to go through progressions. I expect to see him just being involved in the rushing attack, which he is. But Riley Leonard, he has some tools, man. Like he can zip the ball, he can, throw dots downfield, which some of the time you see a guy with a big arm and a rushing acumen, and they aren't able to throw accurately downfield. With Riley, that just pops up consistently. I think, we saw the improvement. He didn't get on the field a whole lot in 2021, but you see the improvement in statistics and with a Duke team that really there's not a whole lot of talent around him. I think Jalen Calhoun is a guy worth noting as he will certainly be the wide receiver one again this year. But when you watch Riley Leonard, the tools are there, and he's starting to generate some draft buzz. I've seen a few NFL draft analysts this summer say like this is a kid you need to keep some eyes on. So while it might not be immediate, and I know how you feel about quarterbacks in Devy, and I agree. I think overall drafting quarterbacks is tough, but when he's not really getting drafted, and I think he should be with the upside potential that he has.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, if you're gonna take a shot on him, you take a shot on a guy with the tools like him, like in terms of where he's going and value wise. I don't even know, like, so we were in a 10-round mock, so he went in the 6th round. Late 6th.
Okay.
I don't hate that. Like if you're going to take a shot and you're looking for that, yeah, absolutely. I do think the rushing upside, like you mentioned, and yeah, I think, one thing to do, especially if you're new to the format, I like looking at draft guys' takes much more than, and this is going to sound bad, but much more than like the Devy takes because, we fall for guys and we think there, but like the draft guys are really in tune with where the capital is going to be. And that's what matters. Like when you're talking about these guys, 1st round, whatever the case may be with quarterbacks. But that's a good way to look at it. Like, okay, what do these draft guys take? And I give Christian shit, but there are a lot of draft guys out there that really do like Riley Leonard. So like, I think it's something to note, like when you're looking at some of these areas and when you look at the rankings around these guys, like, yeah, like when we're talking about 56, who you're going to go kind of grab in that area, like Devin Leary. I don't know. I think we kind of know what Devin Leary is. I'd rather maybe take a shot on the upside of Riley Leonard. And that's how I look at it.
Can I throw just a teeny little hot take out there?
Yeah.
Riley Leonard's the best quarterback Duke has had in the last 20 years, including the one that's currently starting for an NFL team in terms of as a prospect. So I think that's worth noting.
And from a fantasy perspective, Daniel, when you think of Daniel Jones, he's fine, right? People are drafting him now as like a QB2 in Superflex. He got the contract. If Leonard could do that, you'd be very happy getting him in the 6th round. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at in the show for underrated guys. All right, 3rd one, Trey Benson Love. So, I think the TDR guys, us here at the channel, are responsible for all the Trey Benson Love because we started talking about Trey and in particular Christian really early on in the process. And now, before you were getting him in the 6th, 7th round, now he's getting up there a little bit. I know position rank consensus wise, he's in the 30s for us. I know Christian has him much higher than that. But yeah, I think Trey Benson is still probably undervalued because I don't think he's well known in all of the Devy circles. More of the when we're thinking of Devy and that kind of stuff, the hardcore guys definitely know Trey, but not consensus wise.
Yeah. He's my RB2 for the 2024 class.
Love it.
I have Travion and then I have Trey. And I think as you start to hear some draft analysis and as people start to watch this Florida State offense, which it's an exciting offense to watch, so I don't think people are going to be too far behind on that, they're going to notice Trey Benson. I didn't go into the Florida State film expecting to watch Trey Benson. The first time I was trying to watch the quarterback there. And Trey Benson is one of those guys that just pops when you turn on the film. He breaks off a 15-yard run, and then he follows it up with a 30-yard run. He is an explosive player with great contact balance, with great vision. I think if I had to knock him for one thing, it'd be he can sometimes second-guess himself in the backfield and be a little hesitant. But if he starts to run with incredible conviction, this is the Dameon Pierce, except I think this is the guy that he's got the recruiting profile. He's got the production. I think he's going to get more than 154 attempts next year. I can guarantee that. And so I think you're looking at probably a round 2 pick there. I have heard some things that some draft analysts are projecting him to be that first running back off the board, potentially in the first round next year. So I know it's really early for that, but right now the value that you can get with Trey Benson is absurd, and I will scoop that everywhere I possibly can.
Yeah, and I don't think that's as absurd as you think, the running back one. There's a lot of question marks with this 24 class. Like, and I think that there's question marks throughout. We've kind of mentioned it multiple times, looking at the guys, Henderson, Raheem Sanders, I think has question marks. I've been on a few shows. They've been asking about him. It's like, well, I think there's concerns all throughout that class. Like we've talked about it. This class is going to be made or broken by that running back class and how they're evaluated by the NFL. Like realistically, it's a 6-man probably class. If the running backs hit, it's probably a 12-man class. I think that's where the value is. And talk about like when we think 12-man class, talk about elite, obviously it's gonna be more. But yeah, I do think with Benson, like there's no right or wrong answer here. I like it. I think that he's in there. I probably a little lower on him. I think, but based on what you've talked about, he probably should be a little higher. Like Shipley's another guy, like Will Shipley. He probably should be ahead of Will Shipley, probably just based on what he's going to get with his draft capital. So if you could pivot off Shipley to Benson plus, that might be a move that you try to make, and you try to move it there. All right, last guy. We are not getting out of this show before I talked about my guy. I've been talking about this kid forever, so I'm just going to be riding him there. J. Michael Sturdivant. If you guys don't know who this is, he was a very, very solid track star, really athletic kid out of Texas that went to Cal, the dumpster fire of the Cal Bears offense, and did really nothing his freshman year. Then the sophomore year, last year, 12 games, 65 catches, 755 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And he looked really good. Like when the moments that he came, he had some flashes and a really, I would say, inefficient offense. Then he transferred. He goes to UCLA. And I love where he picked, because he picked a spot that he can be the immediately, wide receiver 1 on that roster. And if Dante Moore wins that job, I think that you're looking at a very, very solid season for Sturdivant. I think he's going to test very well. I got him recently in the 8th round of a startup. And if you're going to look for like that, the wide receiver class in the 24 class, he's the type of kid that you look for. Athletic. I think he's going to put up great testing numbers, 6'3", 205. Jay Michael's the type of guy that I love getting late, because I think he can boom into the NFL circles of like, oh, who is this kid when he tests well? I don't know. Have you watched a lot of Sturdivant, or am I on the island here?
No, I have. I mean, the thing that pops is the athleticism, right? And the ability to win. I think he can win on all 3 levels. I think, as a possession type of guy in those intermediate areas where Dante Moore is really good, I think he can succeed. And I think that UCLA offense is going to be, his opportunity to show all of that, because like you said, he walks into an immediate number 1 wide receiver role. And I think that offense is going to be a lot better than a lot of people project. So, yeah, I love this call. I'm probably too low on him. I think he's like my wide receiver 100 in the combined rankings or something like that. So, and you have him, I think, in the 80s or something around there. So, I could probably split the difference there. But, yeah, good player. I'm excited to see what he does this year.
Yeah. And I think that you're just projecting that next step, and you're looking for that talent. Like, and you're saying, okay, how does that talent work? And I think if I want Dante Moore to win that job really bad, because if he does, I think that would be great pairing for both those guys and how he produces. So this is our underrated Devy rankings. A little bit more fun to talk about the underrated guys, just because we're not, saying they're overrated and understanding that. But hey, here are some guys that go target. We looked at running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks. Obviously, we have not spent a lot of time talking about tight ends. That's because in Devy, tight ends don't really matter. So, just kind of just move on. Just move on from there. We appreciate you guys. Check out our Patreon. The link is below in the description box. If you like these rankings, if you want to kind of look at them, judge them, come join. It's $3 a month, not very much, and you guys get all this information. Plus, we have a manifesto update rolling out here pretty soon. So appreciate you guys. We'll check you guys next time.